thank you so much for joining today. I'm Lennox Wasara, and today I have a special guest. We are definitely talking transition, life changes. We're also talking about success, and we're talking about identity shift, right? When your identity sort of changes from one role to the next. Those things, somebody that has lived this out, somebody who's experienced this, who I think is the best person to speak to, who joins me today, Mr. Chester Mbekela, also known as KZ. But you might be wondering who's Chester. Let me just sort of give you a bit of background of who he is. He's currently 32 years old. I know he doesn't look that old, but he is 32 years old. He's not a football age or anything. He's actually 32 years old. But he's actually a rugby player. He's been playing professional rugby for a very long time. He's had the opportunity to play in 6 different countries: South Africa, Northern Ireland, USA, Hong Kong, France, as well as to be part of a rugby team in Japan. So in 2013, he was actually part of the students who took part in the Festival of World Cups in Leeds for rugby league competition. This was in the UK. And then in 2016 as well, he went on to become the first South African to be part of the French Elite 1 rugby league competition, in which he was representing Toulouse Olympia. He's currently a holder of a BCom degree in marketing, as well as a master's qualification, which he got in France. So very qualified man, very intelligent as well. But he retired from rugby in Japan, where he is currently based. And currently, I believe he's an entrepreneur as well. So he's entrepreneurial. He's currently running a digital marketing agency in Japan. He also has a digital magazine and also a brand ambassador for Hishika. Hishika is a clothing company in Japan. But also, he's very good with a pen and paper. He's also an author of 2 books, which are currently selling on Amazon. But also, he's writing his 3rd book. So we're waiting to see how that goes. Chester, welcome, and thank you for joining today. I really do appreciate it. People will be wondering who Chester is. That's who he is. But let's hear from him. Who are you, Chester?
All right. Thank you very much, Lennox. That was one heck of an introduction. Thank you very much. So yeah, to everyone who's wondering who I am, Chester is actually just a nickname I picked up in primary school while playing rugby after the legendary Chester Williams.
Right.
In fact, my given name is Kangelani Mbekela, and I am from a small town in the Eastern Cape known as Mthatha. I grew up in Mthatha up until I was about 15 years old, and that's when my family and I we moved to Pretoria, where I lived, for many years. Finished high school off over there, and university as well. And yeah, so I mean, I'm very passionate about sports. I'm passionate about technology as well, and just continuing learning about business. I think that's why I was a business major, and marketing and all those things at university was because it always it had me curious type of thing. But yeah, I still love my sports. I'm actually a lover of all sports.
Yeah.
I love rugby. I love watching soccer. I love watching basketball. I've really gotten into watching the NBA, following the NBA. I follow the NFL as well. So yeah, I guess you could just say, I love sports type of thing.
That's amazing. And you're currently based in Japan. You've lived in several countries. You've played rugby. You've traveled a lot. But talking about South Africa, how was your journey growing up in this country, South Africa?
Well, I mean, growing up in South Africa, man, it was amazing. It's, for any, young African, black child, it was just, it had its challenges, but definitely, the good outweigh the bad, type of thing. I was very fortunate that, I grew up, in a household where, both my parents were very hardworking, just normal middle class. We weren't, rich type of thing, but we had, our needs met type of thing. We had access to, decent education, just to give us, a start in life.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm definitely, grateful for the way I grew up, and I wouldn't change anything about the way I grew up in South Africa. It definitely defined me and it toughened me up,
Yeah.
Toughened.
Amazing. One thing that I've noticed speaking to a lot of people, for myself personally as well, is that I find it to be quite difficult to sometimes know what you want, right? And I think you're one person who knew what you wanted. And how did you go about figuring out what you wanted and actually pursuing it and achieving some of those things?
Well, I mean, that is a good question, Lennox. But, in all honesty, I didn't know what I wanted from the get-go, but I just had this thing inside me that, I told myself that, I want to be somebody. Like, I just want to do something, I want to be a person that, my late mother and father, could be proud of, to introduce me to people and be like, that's my kid type of thing. So it wasn't until my under 21 year, while playing rugby at Tux, that, I figured out that, you always get an aha moment when things just click. And for me, things just clicked that, I want to live life abroad. I want to experience rugby abroad. And so what I did was, during that time, this was about, 2009, so to speak. And, YouTube was still new at the time. It was still fairly new, especially in South Africa. So what I started doing was I started collecting all my club games playing for Tux and all my provincial games playing for the Falcons under 21 Currie Cup B division. And I started uploading them, on YouTube, and I started making highlight videos. And I just started, marketing myself. I basically was using what I was studying in class. I started marketing myself to agents and just putting my name out there to, to clubs abroad, to agents abroad. And, really expressing the hunger that I had, to get an opportunity. I didn't care where, honestly, Lennox. I just, I wanted an opportunity, and I was relentless about it, And it was actually me and a friend of mine who sadly passed away last year. His name, Tom Siabela. Me and him, were very, 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 adamant about making this happen. And we actually started around about the same time, just uploading YouTube videos. And, I'm proud of the fact that we both got to achieve, that one thing that we were hustling for, years ago. So yeah, I was definitely happy about that. It definitely took a lot of, relentless effort, because you get a lot of rejections, a lot of, silence, no one hitting you back, no one contacting you back. So it literally took, just a lot of resilience in us, man. But we were just determined to make it happen, because we really enjoyed playing rugby. Like, I loved playing rugby when I played. And I saw that my time in SA was coming to an end. I was 21 years old. And after under 21, the rule is, if you don't get anything, then you pretty much fall, through the cracks type of thing. And me and my late friend Tom, we didn't want to go into that, into that good night type of thing. So we wanted to keep fighting on.
That's true. And one important part as well is you talk about rejection, something that is hard to go through. I wonder, how did you manage the rejections that came your way? I don't know if what teams you played for at under 21, and how you were planning to perhaps get into a specific team, and maybe if it worked, if it didn't work, how did you deal with those rejections rather?
Are you asking about rejections in South Africa, or
rejections in general in your working career?
There's honestly no formula, Lennox. Honestly, I mean, the way I deal with rejection is I usually just organize a very intense gym session, just to sort of work out the frustration type of thing. So yeah, I would always just combat it by just training harder. And because I realized, from a young age, that, training hard, it's sort of, it calms me type of thing. And it gives me a lot of clarity. Like, I'm talking about smashing heavy weights here, dude. Like, just training myself into oblivion. Yeah. So that's pretty much how I handled it, from a mental aspect. I think, from, just normally I would, I'd have the conversation with the coach. If, let's say, maybe I'm dropped from a team, right? I'll try and have the conversation that, what is it that I'm doing wrong? What can I improve on? And then I would try, and go and improve those things. But if there was no communication, then I would always, try to look for an alternative, or, just maybe go play somewhere else. Because if the person wasn't going to communicate what I'm doing wrong, then I would, I'd take it personally. They always say that, if, when the communication, is sort of like cut, the other party can always assume, and you know what they say, you know what they say about assumption, you know, you make an A of you and me type of thing, you know?
Yeah, right.
So it's never right to assume. So that's pretty much why I would, just try process it and allow myself to actually feel the disappointment. I think that's one of the most important things.
That's very good.
That, yeah, you allow yourself to feel the disappointment, but don't dwell on it. You know, don't go on that downward spiral of negativity. That's the one thing that I always avoid. Like for me, I'd always give myself a 24-hour window to wallow in self-pity. And after that, you know, I would, you know, try bounce back. And, you know, that's pretty much what I've carried with me, not only in sports, like that's because that happens in academics as well. You know, I've failed so many tests, so many exams, and, you know, you got to bounce back. So that lesson of just being able to process things, allowing myself to feel, and then, you know, challenging myself to get up and, you know, get back at it. That's what's, you know, kept me going.
Amazing. I think you also hit a bit on, you talk a little bit as well about how you've had to build your resilience. That is nice to say, but how do you actually do that? I mean, I think a lot of people, for me personally, I try and figure out how do I build my resilience. It's something I'm always thinking about, and I kind of would like to know, how do you go about that?
You know, with the availability of technology nowadays, you know, Lennox, you know, there's always YouTube videos that you can, you know, research maybe a person that you admire. Like you know, when I play, you know, there are a lot of, you know, professional athletes, not only in rugby, in other like sporting codes, that I'd always try and mimic. And you try study like their psyche. And I mean, I'm sure everyone's aware of, you know, the documentary that's literally just finished a few months ago, you know, The Last Dance with Michael Jordan. I mean, that documentary literally took us into the mind, you know, psychopathic mind of, you know, Michael Jordan. And just having that, you know, Mamba mentality, you know, of the late Kobe Bryant, and just, you know, just having a grit about yourself, bro. Because if you don't have that, then, you know, it's like building, how can I say? It's like building your house on sand. If you don't have that foundation, you know, that tough exterior foundation and interior, then it makes it difficult, you know, to soldier on. And because I had been through so many setbacks, you know, whether it's injury, whether it's, you know, being dropped and all that stuff, that's how you build it, through disappointment. Actually, that's how you build it.
Is it fair to say that, you know, that is an opportunity to actually, when you feel rejection, it's an opportunity to actually build these?
Yeah, it is. It honestly is, because you know, it forces you to take a look at yourself, and, you know, you ask yourself that, okay, what am I doing wrong? What did I miss? Which step did I miss? You know, so you take, you know, a few steps back and you start strategizing again. And then you tell yourself, all right, maybe next time around, you know, I'll try this method. And, you know, you got to keep hammering away, bro. Like, that's why I always get worried when, you know, someone is getting things so easily, you know, because I'm like, you know, my fear about this is that the day this person experiences, you know, true hardship, or a situation whereby he's knocked on his knees and he needs to get up, is he gonna have, you know, that resilient, you know, attitude, you know, to actually tell himself that, you know what, I can bounce back from this too, you know?
It's true. And one of the things I like about, obviously, your journey is that you've traveled a lot and you've been around many countries, and you've played in very diverse teams of rugby, as well as really being exposed to different cultures. I mean, the cultural process of transitioning from culture to culture, how did you deal with some of those cultural pressures and those cultural barriers that you might have dealt with? I mean, we have people at the University of Pretoria, for example, and that students that come out here and they're coming from different countries, and, you know, they come into Pretoria and it's a different type of experience. And sometimes adapting to the new environment can be a challenge, but also it's true for us in the sense that when you adapt from being a student to maybe working, you transition from student culture to work culture, and that's not always easy. How did you go about those transitions?
Yeah, I think for that one, Lennox, I would honestly say the simple, solution to that, you got to humble yourself. You know, you got to let go of who, you used to be. Now, let's talk transition, from a sporting perspective, where you got to now transition into corporate. You got to be willing to let go of that identity that you once had, as this top athlete who did this and that and that, and that's all good and well, but you need to accept that that's in the past now. It was an amazing period, a chapter in your life, but you gotta you gotta know when a chapter is done, and you gotta be willing to close it. Humble yourself, be willing to unlearn and then relearn. Wow. When you go into that next phase, that next chapter, go into it. I mean, don't go into it like all naive and stuff. Take the lessons that you learned from your sporting career. Example, things like work rate, things like, not giving up, things like, having that resilient attitude. Take those into the new chapter, but also know that, you're starting over, But the key point is just to always, be humble. It's important to be humble. It really, really, really is. And I think when you're able to do, follow those steps of, unlearning and relearning, you become very easy to mentor. You're always going to find people that are willing to mentor you, type of thing. You gotta, you can't have an ego. You gotta be willing to, keep quiet and listen.
Wow, that's good. Talking about
that's what I can advise, guys. Yes. And that also applies to like, students coming out of university and heading into the corporate world as well. When you're in university, you're getting high marks, you're getting your 80%, you're getting your 90%, you're in the, golden key type of thing. I know they have a tux.
Yeah.
Those things, those are good achievements and all, Lennox. But when you get out into the real world, don't walk around with that ego that I was this, I was that type of thing. Again, you got to humble yourself, because I promise you, in the real world, whether you were getting 60% or 80%, that doesn't matter. How you build relationships, how you're able to actually interact with people and translate what you studied at university into the real world is what counts.
Amazing. Amazing. You talk about listening there, and I think an important part of listening is to do with education. You love education. You've got a master's qualification. What role has your education played in your success?
Well, first of all, education was, it was non-negotiable in my household. Like my parents, they weren't willing to waver, from the education part. You had to get an education in my household. So for me, education was important in the sense that it taught me to think, strategically. It taught me to think critically. It taught me to be able to recognize opportunity, type of thing. I'm not saying that a person who hasn't gone to university or hasn't got like a university degree can't, think critically and strategically. I'm just saying on my part, it's helped me to be able to identify certain things that I know that if I didn't have an education, I wouldn't be able to see, And I would say education also opened doors in the sense that it made me eligible to qualify for a work visa much easier when I wanted to move abroad and play my sport, and also, get employment as well, especially when I was playing semi-pro in the countries I was playing semi-pro. So when you have a degree, it makes, the immigration department, it makes them say yes to giving you a work visa that much easier, so it made life a little easier for me when I had my qualification. And yeah, man, and it was a promise I made to my late parents that I would finish school. And then the second qualification, my master's qualification, which was in international business management, I basically, that was my decision to do it, because I just wanted to, level up and upskill myself and study further. So when I went to play in France, I enrolled to study my master's qualification.
That's amazing. That's sometimes can be difficult to juggle maybe or work and perhaps somebody studying further if they're working or if they've got a family, or, it can be all the responsibilities. It can be quite difficult. How did you sort of manage, your full-time job, which is of course making sure the contractual duties of a rugby contract are being met, delivering on the field, as well as making sure that your professors in the classroom are happy?
Time management, brother. Like, that's the one thing that students should take from universities, that university teaches you about time management as well, you know. So I would say for me, time management and commitment. Like, you know, sometimes you knock off work and, you know, you're feeling tired and you just want to go back home and sleep. But, you know, commitment, man, because I had wanted this life, I told myself that I wasn't going to take it for granted. That's the one thing that I can always promise about me, is that these opportunities I kept on getting, I never once took them for granted. Like, I went at it with everything I had. And I think that's why when I retired, I was happy to do so, because I knew I'd left nothing. There's no what ifs, you know. And that happens when you show commitment to the grind that you got to do, you know, that you have to do. So for me, meeting my obligations, both, you know, from an employment perspective and athletic perspective, it was just sheer commitment, time management, and discipline. That's another key one, discipline.
I have to say, writing is not an easy skill. Writing requires a lot of commitment. You've got to have discipline, as you mentioned. You've written 2 books. You're writing your 3rd book right now as I speak to you. Tell us a little bit more about those books. You know, what inspired you to be a writer?
Well, so, you know, this ability, I don't want to call it a talent yet, because, you know, I'm still finding my feet as a writer. You know, so this ability, luckily, you know, it was kind of passed down to me as a gift by my late parents. So both of my late parents, my mom and dad, they wrote textbooks.
Wow.
Yeah, so my mom and dad both wrote, I know my dad wrote math textbooks and science textbooks. My mom wrote biology textbooks, and I think she co-wrote a few math textbooks as well.
Wow.
You know, so I think that gene was sort of passed down to me. And for me, I got inspired to write, man, you know, when you're coming towards the end of your career, because I mean, I had a 10-year spell where I was playing overseas. You know, in my last year, just before I retired, you know, you start having flashbacks, you know, you start thinking of, you know, this 10-year journey that you've been on, you know, and, you know, you get inspired that maybe I should share this information, you know. And the first book, which is a children's book, I mean, that one, I guess I was just feeling, you know, inspired, you know, to just be creative. I wanted to tell a, you know, fictional story about a young boy who discovers a magic rugby ball that allows him, you know, to basically travel through time and across different galaxies. And obviously that inspiration came from me playing rugby in all those different countries, type of thing, you know. And then the second book it literally is me giving back information to anyone who'd ever, you know, want to travel a similar journey to what I traveled, you know, the journey of, you know, playing sport or studying or working abroad, because I've been able to do all 3. I've honestly been fortunate enough to get the opportunity to do all 3 of those. So tips, and that's what inspired me.
That's very interesting. I think you mentioned that you obviously got 2 books, and I believe that you said the first one is the Magic Oval Ball, and the second one being playing, studying, or working abroad, the blueprint of that. And that is a book, of course, that I think is very relevant, as you say. You've got all these lessons that you've learned from having worked abroad, and I think a lot of people would sort of maybe wonder where they can get these books if they would like to perhaps get their hands on any of these.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, both these books are available on Amazon.com. Both available on ebook and paperback version. Well, the Magic Oval Ball is available on ebook and paperback version, and then the Playing Sports, Studying or Working Abroad, that's available in ebook, paperback, and hardcover. But I always encourage people to get the paperback version, because that's the value for money one. Like, I'm not I'm not trying to promote the most expensive one, but the hardcover one, if people want the hardcover one, they can go for that too. But the paperback version is the one that I strongly urge. If a person wants, the physical, book to be delivered to them, that's the one I would recommend.
Absolutely. Look, speaking to you, obviously, undoubtedly, I can tell you're very knowledgeable, and I would wonder, with all the knowledge you've accumulated over this period, what is it that you perhaps know now that you would, advise people on, that if you knew then, that you would maybe change a few things, that you would look at things differently?
Well, things that I would encourage is that, you got to stay calm in certain situations. You got to be zen. I think, the older I'm getting, the more I'm learning to stay calm, in stressful situations, and I guess, things, and also the listening one, man, like, when you keep quiet and listen to people that are more experienced than you, it's not a weakness. You learn to be more silent and actually absorb knowledge, because there are amazing people out here in this world, Lennox, that are willing to, implore their knowledge on you. But it's just that when you're young, you think you know everything, and you have this ego and attitude that, I'm going to do things my way. And, I promise you, just learning to keep quiet, absorb knowledge from people more experienced than you. Obviously, still, being conscious enough to make your own decisions. I'm not saying, become a yes man type of thing. No, maintain your character, but listen more. That's honestly what I would, what I would encourage people.
True, and I think listening is important, because we see some people not listening to governments, the WHO, regarding the measurements that they need, the precautions to prevent the spread of the virus. I know that the pandemic has affected all of us in many ways. But however, applied, solutions have been applied differently in different countries. In Japan, where you are living now, how have you managed to deal with the pandemic? How has it altered your life, the way you're doing your business?
Well, the pandemic, we went through a lockdown period here in Japan, but it wasn't intense. There was still a lot of freedom within and everything around it. And I think, from a personal adjustment, it was obviously working more remotely from home. But I feel like I've been quarantined all my life, that it didn't really affect me that much in that aspect, because I'm a loner, but I love to socialize with people as well. So meaning that I enjoy my own company. I enjoy being on my own, because I believe that's when I become, the most creative type of thing. So I would say that, those are the adjustments, and obviously, making sure that I stay healthier. I've doubled my training in terms of, program and my eating habits. When you stop playing sports, you sort of, you go down a rabbit hole of, junk food eating. But because of the pandemic, like, I had to get rid of that habit very quickly, and just went back to eating as if I've got a rugby game next week type of thing. I'm eating a lot of vegetables, taking my multivitamins, just staying healthy, and adapting to, how the world is currently. And even when things go back to normal, whatever that means, I think this pandemic has been a great lesson that, we got to move forward with the times. Another important adjustment is things are becoming more digital. The future is digital. So I think, a lot of jobs, a lot of work is adopting, the online method. There are a lot of things that are becoming digitized. And that's the one thing that I would encourage, all the young people, whether you're planning on starting your own business or anything, make sure that you can offer your product or service online as well. That's the advice I would give.
Amazing. That speaks a lot to change. We have to be open to change. And I think change comes with a lot of discomfort. I sometimes feel uncomfortable if I have to go through specific changes. What is the best way to maybe deal with change? Some people will adapt better, but some people not so much. What do you think are some of the key things you've learned through your journey on how to deal with change?
How to deal with change? you need to get over yourself. That's the number one. Honestly, you know, because I know some people have this attitude that, no, I'm set in my ways. This is how I am. You know, in theory, you know, that's all beautiful and well, but in reality, it's adapt or, I don't want to say die, because then that sounds, you know, all gloom and doom, but you get left behind. It's change or get left behind. And trust me, you don't want to be that person who wakes up, you know, the one day and realize that the world has left them behind. You know, that's why a lot of businesses are suffering in this pandemic, is because a lot of them were not willing to, you know, adapt to the digital side of things. That's been coming. The digital wave has been coming for many years, but because, you know, people have an ego, people will be like, no, you know, I'm sticking to my guns. This is how things have been done in my business for years and years. And then when the COVID hit, when this digital wave hit, because everything just became digitized when COVID hit. You know, people were having graduation ceremonies on Zoom. So what does that mean? You know?
Wow.
So yeah, so it's adapt or get left behind.
True. And look, one of the big challenges we have in it's a global challenge, but also it's a local challenge in South Africa. And I think in the African context, it's as well a big challenge amongst many other African countries. And that has to do more with you know, the job search, finding your job, unemployment, really quite high. And it can be demoralizing, you know, if you get your qualification, maybe you got the master's or your first degree or whatever.
Yeah.
Now you're thinking, okay, I can contribute to the world, and just not getting the job. I mean, what would you say to people, I mean, that are probably in that space right now, trying to find a job, maybe it's not coming through, or when they feel like they're not really in their career, whereas you've had the beauty of being in your career and something that you really love, and now you're an entrepreneur. I mean, some of the lessons you've learned about how people can maybe manage, you know, those uncertainties.
Patience, brother. You know, I would say, in all honesty, you know, they have to be patient. I know it's tough times at the moment, and especially, you know, back home in SA, where, you know, people are applying and things are just not coming through. And you got to also think about, you know, companies have had to do a lot of, you know, cutting when it comes to, you know, cost and everything. So it's a bit of an iffy time at the moment. But I would say to people, this is when you actually need to realize that you got to look, you know, broader than SA. Like, I love South Africa, you know, Lennox, like I really do love it. But the beauty of, you know, getting an education and, you know, getting that degree is that it opens up the world for you, you know. So if I was a person now who's just, you know, just constantly applying and just not getting anywhere, I would look broader, like look at these opportunities that these Asian countries are offering in terms of, like, you know, teaching English abroad. You know, I know some people are like, nah, but I never saw myself as a teacher. That's not, they got to look at the bigger picture. You know, I know a lot of people that have come, you know, to Asia as, you know, English teachers, and they earn decent amounts of money. And guess what happens when they get here? They make contacts, they network, and then they actually meet people that are in the industry that they actually desire to be in. And then that's when you can make the transition and actually go into what you love doing. You get my point? But it's just that getting your foot in the door, because if you now try apply for an accountant's position in Hong Kong and you're in South Africa, I promise you now, chances are, unless you've got like 15 years experience, you're not going to get that gig.
Yeah.
Because Hong Kong would rather employ someone who lives in Hong Kong, type of thing.
Yeah.
But to get your foot in the door, you probably have to take an English teaching position, move to Hong Kong, maybe teach English for a year or two, which will give you a chance to settle, network, and then, you know, you'll meet people. I promise you, it's, you know, it's that environment. It's just that type of environment when you're in these countries. You meet so many other foreigners, or, you know, local people that are maybe in the industry that you desire to be in. You know, when I came over to Japan as well, I mean, I just came over for rugby, and I was doing business English coaching for a company. And then, you know, through making, you know, contacts and networks and everything, I was able to go into the digital marketing space. So invariably, I was also, quote unquote, doing English teaching, even though it was at a corporate level type of thing,
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm saying, that you got to open up your mind to new experiences. You got to look at the bigger picture.
Right.
You leaving home, South Africa, doesn't mean that you're abandoning your family. You're in search of something, of a new adventure. So I encourage guys that don't only apply in SA. Send that CV out, globally, man, because that's the beauty of life, is that, the world is just one big global community now.
Yeah, that's true. And I think another important part as well is the entrepreneurial side. I mean, for you, how did you deal with becoming an entrepreneur? What are some of the hard decisions you have to deal with? It's not always glamorous as people think of it to be, but it is a lot of hard work, a lot of uncertainty. And how did you really find your footing as an entrepreneur?
Well, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it definitely is not, definitely not for the faint-hearted. Just by doing different hustles, bro. Like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like for me, I started doing the whole digital marketing thing first as a freelancer, like on top of, my employment, on top of, my rugby and everything. Like I started reaching out to, clients here and there, meeting people, attending events. The one thing that I like doing is I attend a lot of events through this platform that's over here called Internations. So Internations is basically an event planning platform that, foreigners and actually local Japanese people, we all meet at a certain venue and there's like an event. So you get to meet people. So that's how I started scouting, for potential clients and everything. Uh-huh. And yeah, man, it's humble beginnings, bro. Like you literally got to go in the trenches, man, and you got to work. Yeah. It's a lot of work. Like I know a lot of people think, when you going the entrepreneurial route is that, now everything's all hunky-dory. You can wake up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and no, in fact, it actually takes more work to get that off the ground. And, and I'm not even near where I want to be, in terms of my business ventures. I'm still grinding it out. I'm still on grind mode. But yeah, because I'm used to work ethic and everything, I'm really loving the process, because I know I'm building something for myself here. It's something that I have plans, for it to last for, years on end, type of thing. So now I'm loving the process.
Amazing. It's amazing. I think we're also running out of time, but important questions to ask, always have to ask this question. What's in it for you in the future? Let's say 5 years from now, where do you see yourself going?
Well, I mean, Lennox, I met you a couple of years ago when you were still in high school. Me, sports has always been my number one passion. I mean, as much as I'm very passionate about technology and business, sports remains at the core of what makes Chester Mbekela. And so I've decided that, I'm definitely going to work on getting my agent's license. I'm not going to tell you for which sport, though.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you yet.
I can put my hands up as a rugby player.
Don't be so sure. So I'm working on getting my sports agent's license, because I feel that, I want to represent and mentor, athletes. I would love to give back the knowledge that I've been able to learn in all these countries that I've been able to play in, because I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a mentor or agent to tell me, do this, do that. I literally had to figure out some of the stuff on my own. And all that information is in my book, playing sports, studying or working abroad. I'm very open about mistakes that I made and lessons that I learned. So that's pretty much what I'm working on in the next 5 years. Is I'm working on adding an agency section to my digital marketing agency. So I'm looking to have, an agency which is sports agency and digital marketing, while also running the magazine, because in that way I'll be able to boost whichever athlete I'm representing. I'll be able to boost their profile through, getting articles about them and just really marketing them to brand. So
amazing.
That's a 5-year plan. So
No.
wish me luck on my agent's exam. It's coming up soon.
Awesome. Look, I mean, you sound like a very diligent working man, and I really am grateful that we got to chat today. I really appreciate it. I would like to say, obviously, from Pretoria, well wishes on your journey moving forward, and thank you so much for this opportunity to chat to you.
Thank you, man. Thank you for the opportunity, that you provided me to be able to share my story. And, I hope that it can inspire. I hope that it can, it can reach someone who, who's being curious about this similar journey that I've traveled. And like I said, I've just been taking it one step at a time, one day at a time, and learning as I go. And yeah, I miss home. I miss Pretoria so much. And I hope that, everyone stays healthy, and that I can, as soon as I can get an opportunity to catch up with you in Pretoria sometime at the HPC.
Awesome. That's Chester joining me all the way from Japan. Very inspiring conversation. As always, your comments matter, your thoughts matter. If you have any questions, if you'd like to reach out to him as well, please do leave your comments below in the section here, and then maybe we can get you in touch with them if you have any further questions. But thank you so much for tuning in. Until then, we will chat soon.